You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Parker Ainsworth, Locked On Coogs here. Look, this Texas Tech roster, top to bottom, offense, defense, is expensive. And we're going to mention that throughout the week, to be honest, because we can't not admit that when we look at the rosters here. Houston is building a program up, rebuilding a program after being not in the Power 4 or Power 5 for so long. And I'd say they're ahead of schedule. Texas Tech having resources from that same window where they were in the Power 5 is kind of finding their footing in this NIL modern football game. I get that. However, while that is the dollars and cents of it all, I do think Houston's got a major advantage in one area I want to talk about today. I think they got a couple other advantages too to talk about throughout the week. But in this specific spot, I think Houston's wide receivers, including the tight end, are a big advantage versus the Texas Tech secondary. I would argue in watching a couple of Tech games, the Oregon State game and the Utah game, that the secondary is the weakest part of Tech's roster. It's not that it's not good or whatever. That just sticks out as being dramatically different. It feels like the letdown relative to the rest of the guys they've got. Houston, on the other hand, had a different lead in receptions 3 consecutive weeks. It's hard as a wide receiver core, when you include the tight end especially, to fixate on any one person. Frankly, the guy most teams are fixating on is tight end TANA KOZIOL, just because he's kind of the most awkward and difficult matchup at 6'8", 250. He necessitates at least 2 guys on him a lot of the game as a tight end that can split out, split off ball, but can also line up in line and fit inside and block and stuff like that. He changes how that all works. So I'd imagine that's the guy to key up on. But honestly, we saw last week AMARE THOMAS come in, get 100 yards, make a big difference, right? The week before, BOOGIE JOHNSON led the team in catches, had his own big plays as well. Boogie seems to be coming alive too. He started off with a touchdown catch in the end of the game against Rice to finally get on the board. Then he had led the team in receptions against Colorado, had the big reception late against Oregon State for the touchdown. He seems to be coming along, and frankly, it would also be very Houston if it was just somebody else we haven't heard of yet this year. Is this the game that you finally have KOBY Young connect on a couple of those deep shots? Because they've taken a shot or two deep to KOBY several different times this season and most of the games they've played, and there's just something not quite connected. It's just a little overthrown or a little through his fingers, or this one's a drop. And the Oregon State bomb that they threw, he catches it and he's falling down as he's catching it, and the ball just pops into there's an injury. I couldn't quite tell how serious it was as he's trying to catch it, and the ball pops out. He's rolling around the ground afterwards for an incomplete pass. You're centimeters and inches away from having some of those happen. Is it the week those click? Because now it's game 5. You've got enough time on task with those. Is it Harvey Broussard, who heard about a lot this summer, a really strong transfer recruit coming in, right? Is it back to Mekhi Muse, who had the gigantic Kansas game a year ago as a scatty guy? We saw Joe McGuire mention him in watching that Tech presser. Joe McGuire mentioned Mekhi Muse as a difference maker in a special teams kind of way. Can you get him the ball in screen kind of situations and create the same kind of advantage in normal football plays, right? All of that is to say that I look at what Derek Sherman, the wide receiver coach, has in front of him and think he has big advantages here and some playmakers. Obviously, a big part of it is that Connor Wegman can sling the football around a bit, and we're learning more and more each week that he's getting more and more comfortable. But I like what Sherman did last game. He's got so much talent in that wide receiver room that after a KOBY Young drop and a Stephon Boogie Johnson drop, he won a series or two without those guys in the game. As great as they are, as much as they're starters on this football team, he went with AMARE THOMAS. He went with Mekhi Muse. He went with Harvey Broussard. And AMARE THOMAS ended up changing the game because of it, right? And I think that's a strength for this team against Texas Tech. Now, schematically, right, they can expect the same kind of stuff, frankly, that they saw in practice last year against Shield Wood. But I think that the talent advantage is actually one of the spots here where Houston's got one. And I think what you'll probably see is Bryce Pollock trying to track Boogie Johnson. Pollock is their best defensive back per Pro Football Focus. He's also an outside corner. I didn't, and watching the Oregon State and Utah games, necessarily see a whole lot of difference between the two, but I'll take that he's a little bit better than his counterpart. So I'd imagine Pollock tries to track Boogie Johnson or whoever you want to call Houston's number one, and we'll kind of figure that out by who they identify, because Pollock does change sides of the field, it looks like, over the course of the football game. The safety / slot guy I think they'll put on Koziol is John Curry, who's 6'2", 235 as a safety, but plays a lot down inside of 8-10 yards in a way that feels more like a nickel, but he's built like a safety, right? I think he'll probably try and play really physical with Tanner. And the deal with Tanner is like with Koziol, it's not that he gets great separation necessarily. He's not an elusive route runner in that way, but it is like his catch radius, his length, his hands. He's just open a lot by existing in the right space. There's like box outs and shields and those kinds of things that just work. Right now, I think this is a big difference for Houston in this game, and I think the big thing for Houston is going to be finding ways to quick execution. Open up AMARE Thomas on the quick dig right over the middle for a first down, or get the deep comeback out of Stephon Johnson, or to frankly get Harvey Broussard more involved in the quick slant game, or those kinds of actions here, right? I'd also fully expect Houston to take 3 shots in this game, 3, maybe even 4. Now, that's a little unique given the situation. Houston's been much more of a ball controlled team. I don't think they're going to go to a lot of the fastball or tempo-y kind of stuff as a base ever. But in this game, I do think with the success you saw against Oregon State at the end, you might see it like once a quarter or twice a half, maybe to kind of make sure it keeps Tech on their toes. And in that kind of way, I could see like that involving more of these wideouts, more of these receivers, and so on. Now, as much as I want to get the wide receivers involved, because I think that is Houston's big advantage in this game, that all relies on minimizing one big glaring problem in this game. And I want to talk about that problem in a second. But before we get too far, today's show is brought to you by our buddies at FanDuel, America's #1 sports, because the NFL season is here. Someone finally told those Houston Texans that it's here. FanDuel has offers that you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you unlock $300 to bet and use across the app. Now, that's in-game, pre-game, parlays, props, money lines, anything you're looking at, FanDuel is the place to look for it. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started.